So today's gonna be really good. I'm telling you, it is, and it's gonna kind of mess with your brain a little bit, but it's gonna be really good. We're going to continue to talk about blessings and how they flow into your life. And we're going to continue to learn this principle about God has designed a pathway to blessing. That it's not just bibbidi-bobbidi-boo of Disney World. It's not just dust that falls on you, and some of us get lucky and some of us don't get lucky. But rather that there is a design in how blessings flow into a person's life. And we learned a specific truth over the last couple of weeks that really extends this design work of blessings. We learned out of Proverbs 11:24, there is one who scatters and yet increases all the more. There is one who withholds what is justly due, and yet it results only in want. The generous man will be prosperous, and he who waters will himself be watered. There's some principle here about that blessings come back to people who water other people's lives, people who give into other people's lives, whether that giving be financially, whether it be serving other people, caring, listening, having conversations, doing ministry at church, whatever it may be. There is this principle that if we water others, that the blessing of watering comes back to us. It's no surprise that Jesus said that out of our innermost being will flow rivers of living water. There, a lot of us are waiting on heaven to bless us when God has already, through Jesus Christ, put the Holy Spirit in us to be a stream of blessings to people around us so that we in turn can get blessed. So a lot of us are shouting up to heaven waiting for God to do something when God already in the death and resurrection of Christ has already put the piping in. He's already run the fire main. He's already run all the plumbing to our house. It's now a matter of us turning it on by being involved in what God is doing in other people's lives. So today we're going to extend this design to parenting. Now, before you leave, this is not going to just apply to parents. This is, the more I looked at it, this is going to apply if your life is in chaos. It's going to apply if you are in any kind of discipling, mentoring, teaching, or helping people recover. So don't just kind of turn it off if you're a young couple and you don't have kids, or you're an older couple and you've already raised your kids and it's like, oh, he's talking about parenting. This has got nothing to do with me. No, I mean, this has something to do with anybody of influence in another person's life. We have a great couple in our church, as an example, Simon and Elizabeth Kilminster. If you don't know them, you are missing one of the best parts of our church. Though they don't have children of their body, they have so many children of their soul. So many children of their soul. They are always involved in helping people recovering from alcoholism. I mean, they spend late nights up rescuing people who are about to kill themselves, meeting with spouses who are trying to deal with somebody who is struggling with alcohol, bailing people out of jail, countless hours of doing this kind of parenting work in the lives of other people, other adults, saving their lives. And to say that they're not parents would be to imply that God, who is my heavenly Father, is not really my Father because he didn't supply any DNA into my construction. But yet I very much feel the fathering influence of God through the world around me. So I want to let you know that it's not just about people who have offspring of their body, but rather it's the offspring of life. It's this idea of being an influencer in directing and helping another person. So since this is going to be, it's going to be kind of technical, philosophical, ideological, and biblical all at the same time. I mean, you're going to have some aha moments in this. So to kind of keep you all in it, I've devised a little thing, and it's a little bit of fun. I am going to use British slang throughout my whole sermon, okay? And you say, well, why are you going to use British slang? Because I know as soon as I said parenting that some of you would check out on this. So I have in my pocket gift certificates to Starbucks that if you can count how many British slang words I use throughout the sermon, you can come up afterwards, let me know how many you counted, and I will give you the gift certificate. So if you're like a dude, and you know what I mean by a dude, right? Dudes like, you dragged me here, I don't want to be here. I hope this is interesting today. Well, listen to all the slang words. And so starting now, if you hear a British slang word, just keep a note of it. And Bob's your uncle. You'll get yourself a gift certificate when it's all over with, okay? So, as parents, we have the ability to bring blessings to our children. And I'm not referring to a PS5 or free college or a new car or even the iPhone 12. What I'm talking about today is something far more systemic. And again, if you're dealing with confusion in your mind or anything like that, this will really apply to you as well, as I've applied it even into my own mind. You're going to find that this is going to help in your child's situation. So let me start with a real world illustration. Last week, a couple of you came up to me immediately after the service to let me know that there was a problem in the parking lot. I don't know, how many of you noticed that there was a problem in the parking lot when you tried to get out, okay? The problem is that people, since there's a couple other churches operating here behind us, the problem was that people were doubled and triple parked. And some people were beginning to throw a wobbly. They were upset. They were they were getting angry about it. And so the problem is there's no lines in the parking lot. If you've gone out there and if you've noticed it, you really can't even see where to park. There is this lack of structure in the parking lot. And because it wasn't that we didn't have surface, it's that we just lacked the structure within the surface to keep a mess from happening. So this week, Brian and Toby jumped on it immediately. I mean, they got out there and they started painting lines. It really stinks to be the youth pastor of a church. I mean, this is where you end up going, is you end up doing jobs like this. No, they actually love doing stuff. But one of the things that we discovered, that they had to lay out a pattern for this structure, for the parking lot. Or they had to rediscover a pattern that was already there. Now just put that in your mind. They had to clear off the sand and the dirt and rediscover a pattern that had already been put there, and in order to restore some sort of sense of order and peace to the parking lot. It seems like a small thing to put lines in a parking lot, but without it, it really causes a kerfuffle. It really does. I mean, it has all kinds. Wow, there are more people paying attention to me today. I mean, you guys are actually taking notes. I'm seeing all of a sudden I'll say one of those words, all of a sudden, checked it off. Well, hey, I know you at first you thought I was an idiot for that, but it's like, it really works. You're paying attention. But here's the thing that I kind of saw from this illustration. It didn't matter the quality of the car. It didn't matter if you drove in a Mazda 5 or a Lexus or whatever it was, you experienced the exact same confusion. Okay, because we're going to find out that really matters. It doesn't matter how smart your child is. It doesn't matter how gifted your child is. It doesn't matter how smart or gifted you are. It didn't matter the age of the car. This wasn't just a problem for new cars or for old cars. It didn't matter the size of the car or the intelligence of the person driving the car. The lack of structure in the parking lot created a chaos that all of us felt. That immediately you were hunting for parking spaces. Some people got it right and some people got it wrong. You see, in America right now, we are obsessed with our right to move about the parking lot. See, America is all about rights now. We're fighting for rights on everything. And so what we want is we want an America where you can go wherever you want to go, whenever you want to go there, or not go anywhere at all. And we want a parking lot where you can park it anywhere you want. We want America without structure. We want an America that doesn't tell us what we need to do. And this conversation in America has led to the erosion of spiritual, psychological, biological, and sociological structures. I mean, right down to the point where we're afraid to say the word gender anymore. I heard one famous psychologists say, if gender is only a social construct, then why are we treating it with hormones? Why are we providing a biological solution to the gender issue if it is only something that we made up in our minds? See, the problem is we're losing constructs that were structures that were given to us through science, through biology, through God, part of our psychology. And we're in a culture right now that's just ripping them down as fast as they can be ripped down. We actually live in a time when tearing down a structure or finding one is a virtue. But beyond the ideology of America, there's that daily living that we go through with all of its demands, its interruptions, its soccer practices, its schools, mask, not mask, vaccinate, not vaccinate, getting to work at a certain time, working from home, working at the office, where we've kind of lost this template of routine, this structure of life. So why do we need structure? And why would that be a gift, a blessing to children? And how could this structure actually bless us back? Well, it provides four things, and these were just four things that came to my mind. There may be more, and I won't go into them heavily, but I think they're kind of words that have intrinsic value. You'll know exactly what they mean. It provides these four things: continuity, connectivity, certainty, and coherency. Now just stare at those for a second, and none of those are British slang words. Just stare at those for a second. Just think about the real gift of continuity, when your life has continuity to it. Or just think about the anxiety of a child. When a child doesn't know if there's continuity to the family, if mom and dad are going to break up, or there isn't continuity to society because they look at riots and all the stuff that they see on the news. Think about the gift of connectivity, the ability to connect that you can give to your children through structure. Here's how you talk to people. Here's how you interact. This is how you make eye contact. I remember with Deanna, we used to go into a restaurant like Subway. We were big spenders. We would take the kids to Subway, but I would always make the children order for themselves. And I would tell them, listen, when you go in there, you're just gonna kind of like talk to the individual that's there, and I want you to make eye contact, and I want you to tell them about whether you want cheese or tomatoes. And you say, well, why'd you do that? It's like, well, I wanted them to understand the structure of interaction, to develop the ability to have connectivity. It's kind of like when you come in here and you're looking for the website. You're looking for, the portal to get onto the web. And so you have to create a software that interacts with our modem, and that interface works. And there's coding that goes on that makes that connectivity happen. And when you provide some sort of godly structure to a person's life, you provide continuity. I see how life is going to go. You provide connectivity, the ability to connect with other people. You provide certainty. What a beautiful structure, the structure of certainty. The last thing you want to have your child think is, Mom, are we going to be okay? Dad, what's going to happen to me? And when you provide the gift of structure to a child's life, you provide a sense of certainty that there's a real blessing in routine. There's a real gift when your kids can wake up in the morning and they don't have to think about how the sun is going to go down or whether or not the sun was going to rise. But they can see, and God built it into the seasons. We have this ability to, it happened this morning. I woke up this morning. Did anybody else knows it was a little darker this morning? I mean, I don't know. I woke up and I got out and I literally went out to see if there was clouds in the sky, and it was a clear sky, and I'm like, dadgummit, it's getting dark again. And you say, well, you idiot. It happens every year. But the great thing is that it does happen every year, and it's predictable, and there's a certainty to it, and there's actually things that can plan around it. And then there's a coherency when you provide structure. There's a coherency. It's like hooking up a boat on the back of a trailer. It's like you go through this, there's a coherent structure to it. You park your your boat trailer down there, you bring the boat up, then you hook the hook to the front of the little thing, and then Pop or somebody gets out there and clack, 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 and they pull it up. Then you sort of like you wave to the guy up in front, and she pulls it out, and you do that and all this. And it's like, what? There's a coherency to the unloading and the loading of the boat. And you say, well, that's not really a big deal. It's like, no, you should be around the Limehouse boat landing in the summer. You'll see so many people just drowning their boats or their SUVs in the water because there isn't a coherency to the system of loading and launching a boat. But what a blessing to give your kids. God gave it to us. I don't care how we created the universe or how we even created the earth, the mechanics that were involved, but all I do know is that when I see in the Genesis story, intentional structure. Separated this from that, he put this with that, created this to work with that way, and all of this continuity, this structure that was put, and what that communicates to me is, oh, this has meaning, this has purpose. Wouldn't you like to give that to your kids? You say, well, you just like to go with the flow. Well, there is some times when you go with the flow, but there are some times when your kids are desperately in need, or even your own mind needs routine and it needs continuity. When I look at the human body, I look at its interactive, mind-blowing, almost blinding benefits of structure. And all you have to do is have one ruptured disc to know what it's like to have that structure interrupted, to have the pain that comes when the structure and the orientation of your physiology is put out of order. And most of us are living every single day with the delight of knowing that the body is rightly related to itself. You find it in Scripture. You discover that how I can connect with God through Christ, and then how I can be rightly connected with other people. And then people who experience that structure of, salvation and grace and mercy and resurrection and Holy Spirit, well, they seem to relate to other people real well with forgiveness and mercy. And then those people seem to experience blessings and friendships and love. And you say, wow, how did that all happen? Is this kingdom of heaven magical? It's like, no, it's structural. It's real. It's tangible. It's coherent. It's predictable. And it's absolutely amazing how God has done that. So yes, godly structure is a blessing that we can give to our children. So today I'm going to move us in and out of parking spaces. And I'm going to use scriptures like parking spaces. So we're going to pull into one, then we're going to back out, and we're going to go, and we're going to pull in another one. And we're going to pull the principles, the structure out of each of these as they pertain to parenting. But again, I would apply these, if you're somebody that wrestles with anxiety or fear or doubt or anything, I would apply all these principles to your own personal life. First one is this, Proverbs 22:6, train up a child in the way that he should go, and even when he is old, he will not depart from it. It's really interesting that when the parking lot is paved real well, that, it's not like if a tree falls in the wood and no one's there to hear it, it doesn't make a noise, okay, which is absolutely ridiculous. That would mean that all sense of reality is based upon the observance of humans. But thank God that there is a structure to the universe, whether humans are there to hear the tree fall or not, okay? The point is that parking lot will exist when there's no cars in it. Whether anybody wants to park in it or not, that structure will be in that space out there. And what we're learning here, train up a child in the way that they should go, and even when he's old, he will not depart from it, doesn't mean that all your kids are going to get saved just because you raised them in a Christian home. It means whether they want to park in it or not, their parking lot has been striped. It means that the principles have been put there. Now, God will not force anybody to park in the spot that they don't want to park in. But just know this, that you will have provided the framework for them to discover grace and mercy and truth, continuity of God, the plan of God in their lives. Man, what a cool principle. But you need to remember that to your children, the structure of your life is greater than the philosophy of your religion. And I know that as Christians, we're like, well, you got to teach your kids the Bible, and I'm all for that. But just know this, is that the structure of your life as a parent, as a mentor, as a school teacher, whatever you are, as a boss, whatever, or as an individual. Your structure will teach more to those who are following you than whatever philosophy you live by. I mean, you can philosophize about all kinds of things, but when they see mom and dad with structure in their lives and adhering to that structure, that when it's time, just like Brian and Toby, in the video you saw that they had to sweep and blow all the dirt off. They had to rediscover it. There may be a time when your kids, let's say when they turn 30, or maybe even 40, when your kids will all of a sudden discover the need for structure in their lives, some sort of orientation, some sort of plan, consistency, all those 4 words, they'll want that. And so what they're going to do is they're going to start looking for one. And what you want is to have one that can be discovered. And as the guys were out there, they were sweeping, they were blowing off the dirt to rediscover the structure so that they could begin to paint the lines. And what we're being told in Proverbs is it's our job to paint those lines in the lives of our children, to communicate principles, godly principles into their lives. Will they do it right away? I don't know, maybe not. But the bottom line is that when it's time for them to look for those lines, you want them to be able to find them. So you got to live it to give it. You got to make sure it's God, and you got to train them in it, not try them in it. You got to live it to give it. They got to see the structure. There's nothing worse than a dad who makes his wife, and I hate even using that phrase, and that's why so many are tearing down structures, who makes his wife take the children to church, but yet he stays at home. That structure applies for you, but it doesn't apply for a man, because I like to hunt and blow stuff up. You know, that's what women and children do. They go to church. But then they don't want their little girls sleeping around with guys, and they don't want their sons becoming drunks, you know. And they want their wives to submit to them, you know, because they'll quote the only verse in the Bible that they know. So you know this. If you're going to communicate a biblical worldview, you gotta live it to give it. So maybe you got to find out whether or not you're living your life like a parking lot without lines, because how can you possibly expect your kids to follow it if you don't have some sort of structure? Make sure it's God's, you know, make sure it's one that's proven to work, and then train, don't try. Or in the words of the great master, do or do not. There is no try, okay? Yes, and I'll give you an extra point if you can quote the name of the master who said that. See, we need to train our children in compassion, in truth, in faithfulness. And I know a lot of you are like, okay, we have to provide structure. You know, that was my Richard Nixon impersonation. You know, it's like we got to provide structure. Well, a lot of you thought, okay, you thought that. No, structure and compassion. Are you providing a parking lot on are you providing a parking space on what does compassion look like? What does truthfulness look like? What does faithfulness look like? You know, dads, if you're here and you want to raise a kid that is faithful to his family, well, you need to show that young man what a faithful man looks like. Because if you're staring at TV all the time and looking at porn, and here's a fact you don't want to know about. Do you know that there are 3 porn sites right now in the world that stream more stuff and are getting more viewership than Instagram and Netflix combined? You think, well, who's bigger than Netflix? Who's better than Instagram? Porn. So if you think that you can be streaming that into your house and watching it on TV while your little girl and little boy are running around, and then turn around and expect them to grow up virtuous, good luck with that, because it doesn't work. You got to train in virtue. You got to train in compassion. You got to train that there's no greater gift that a mom or a dad, and I'm just going to focus on dads here because I just think dads are so cool, and I happen to be one. So it's just there's no greater thing that a dad can do than to show their kids how much he loves their mom. It is the ultimate thing. Is that why do we got little boys growing up and they're becoming misogynist little runts? Where'd they get that idea from? Dad. They got it from dad. Yeah, women are just objects for your own pleasure. So you can see this is a big deal. 2 Timothy 5:1, listen to what Paul said to Timothy. He said, I am reminded of your sincere faith, a faith that dwelt first in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, and now I am sure dwells in you as well. Now, why was he sure that it dwelled in him? Because they were parking lot pavers. They were people who painted parking lots. I know it was in your grandmother, and I know it was in your mother. And so he does this kind of like associative principle for mathematics. It's like, if A equals B and B equals C, then I know that C has this in it. Now I just got to stir it up. There's way too many kids that are coming to church, youth that are coming to church, that when you talk to them about Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, they have no idea. They're wondering if they're part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Who are they? It's like, what happened? Is it their fault? Did we raise our millennials bad people? Are Gen Zers bad people? Or are these like bad kids? We got bad DNAs? No. The generation ahead of them forgot to line the parking lot. To give biblical principles, training and compassion and truth and love and generosity, faithfulness. We're right back to that baby boomer guy again. I'm serious. I don't put the blame anywhere else but my own generation. Next, Ephesians 6:4. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and the instruction of the Lord. See, this little parking space is loaded with all kinds of truth. First, right off the bat, it warns of a temperament that instruction should not flow from. Fathers, in Colossians 3:21 says, do not provoke your children lest they become discouraged. So I love it. Paul's not saying tear down the patriarchy, tear down men, tear down the masculine, there is a movement to tear down masculinity. He says, no, that's not what you do. But let me talk to the masculine for a second. He says, you guys know how to knock off this macho crap with your kids. Now, he's like, before you say anything to them, I don't want you to be like this. I don't want you to exacerbate or provoke your children to anger. Parenting is not about bullying or proving who's in charge. But parenting is about exemplifying and implementing a culture of Christ-likeness. Peter said it in 1 Peter 5:3. He said, not domineering over those in your charge, but being examples in the flock. That's what he's saying to grandpas and to fathers and brothers and mothers. He's like, listen, don't give up structure. Don't tear down structure. It's like, no, that's not the right thing. Is that we need to find out how we're using this structure, because the structure is necessary. But we need to make sure that it's being used the right way. You know, I grew up in the 1960s. I was born in the 1950s. It seems such a long time ago. 1950s, we still thought the moon was made out of cheese. So, we really have come a long way. But since the 1950s and 1960s, we've been living in a culture that is against hierarchical structures and has become anti-patriarchal. Why? Why is this happening? Why is there a rise of hyper-feminism and all that and crazy stuff going on in the world, and whether right or left wing? It's simple. Is that over the last 50 years, we have watched the subtle abuse of power. Okay, we've all seen it. Whether it is the majority or the minority or the 1% or the whatever. You could kind of categorize it. But here's what I want to let you know. It's not the structure. It's who's using the structure that has messed it up. It's not men. It's rogue masculinity. It's not women. It's rogue femininity. It's not democracy. It's just rogue democracy. It's not even capitalism. It's just selfish capitalism, self-centered capitalism. And what we're trying to do is villainize systems. And it's like Paul's saying, no, I need not to do away with fathers, not to do away with gender. It's like I need that father to be operating from a different mindset. I need that dad to act like Christ with his power and authority. I need him to die for his wife instead of bullying his wife. See, the design is beautiful, but our usage over the last 50 years is kind of crazy. And in response, being a part of that 60s hippie, crazy stuff that we did, unfortunately, we lost the benefits of structuring and good mothering and good fathering. And we ended up with a baby boomer culture and Gen Xers who wanted our kids to be our besties, our best friends. I want my kids to be my best friends. Or we want our kids to be just like us and to like us. We want our kids to be our friends. And we kind of had a role reversal. And why? And we got it naturally. You know, I was spanked for things. I don't even remember what I was being spanked for. All I was told, it was better for me that I got spanked. And really, you know, but I still look in the mirror every day and see a couple teeth that are been, you know, removed from my mouth by my father's punch and had fake teeth put in. And somehow in the middle of that, I'm now a father. And so it was easy for our generation to say, I'm not doing that to my kids. Did anybody ever say that when you became a parent? I'm not doing it to you what my father did to me. And what happens is that we eliminated the structure just because somebody in the structure operated tyrannically. We become dodgy helicopter and snowplow parents. That's the new designation. It's called snowplow parents. Before it was helicopter, where you hoved over every decision that your kid made. But now it's snowplow. Young parents are running out in front, making sure nothing can hurt their kids. And they're just plowing everything that could possibly hurt their kids and get it out of their way. But you know, psychologists are saying that this is now becoming a new form of child abuse. It's love that has been mutated by fear. Protecting your child from everything, therefore deciding not to train them in how to face adversity, disappointment, suffering, and failure, even though you know they will experience it in their lives, is a form of child abuse. But that's what we're doing. We're just trying to keep our kids from experiencing anything bad, any repercussions, anything bad in their lives, and we don't want them to hurt. And even though we know that that's not what they'll experience 20 years from now, we are withholding the structure on how to deal with disappointment or no. We even have friggin' Yes Day in America. Yes Day, where your kid is promised on that day, no matter what they ask for, you tell them yes. What kind of wacko, dumb, stupid thing have I ever heard in my life? But just look around what's happening. You're seeing structures crumble. And I'll say this, I'll give this generation credit. You want to tear them down because of the abuse of them. And I'm just going to ask you to slow down. Because some of us who are part of the abuse, I get it now, okay? I get it. I can stand back and it's like, oh, crap, you're right. But I also want to tell you, but don't throw it all away. Because some of it protects civil liberties. Some of it protects identity. Some of it protects so many things about life. Don't throw it all away just because we messed it up. And I think that's the way the apostle and the scriptures are talking to us. Without the encouragement and the instruction of a parent or a dad in their lives, I've heard it said this way. It's as if, to a child, it's as if the spirit of civilization has left you outside the walls as a person of little or no worth. That's what a kid feels like when dad's not there or mom's not there, when there isn't instruction, when there isn't this continuity and connectivity and consistency to life. It's kind of the rolling forward of the shoulders and the downcast spirit, and there's just like no sense of direction in life and feel like they've been left. Why do you think gaming swallows up so much of our children? Is it because gaming's evil? No. It's the only place they can find structure. There are rules in the game. You get a life if you get one of these. And if you find this over here, you can beat this dragon over here. And it's like, well, you think, oh, that's so stupid. What's wrong with the kids? Is they're looking for their heroes someplace else because they can't find them at home. Oh, my goodness. I'm sorry this is so heavy. Maybe this is a bigger picture message than you just going home to your cul-de-sac. But I do know these are the principles that I had to raise my kids on. These are the principles that keep my brain driving on the right and not on the left side of the road, unless you're English. We will always walk a line between being tyrannical and calling out the best of our children. So just know that. It can always be abused. You cannot create a system that's viable that cannot be abused. We want to de-abuse everything, and I get it. I don't want any abuse anywhere. But I tell you what, when a parent has influence over a child, you know we're setting up the possibility for abuse. So how do you keep abuse from happening? By tearing down the structure of influence? No. By getting into the heart of that parent and help them understand the fine line of what they're supposed to be doing. Here it is. Here's what we're supposed to be doing. Providing standards to bring out the God's best in our children. Providing standards to bring out God's best in our children. Here's another one. Teaching them to embrace responsibility over demanding their rights. We don't teach responsibility anymore. We just teach what your rights are and how to get more rights. By challenging them to be more than they think they can be. Oh, some of you are like me. Wouldn't you have wished you just had somebody like that in your life? Or this one, encouraging them to do something difficult and heroic. I had an opportunity to have lunch with a bloke and his teenage son and friend. And in the middle of the conversation, one of the boys shared with me that he was thinking about going to the Air Force Academy. And, that just sounded so wicked awesome, okay? And one, because that's something that my father wanted all of us boys to be. But my father didn't provide a pathway for us to be that. At least I couldn't find the place. I couldn't sweep the sand off at 13 years of age to find how you got to the Air Force Academy. But I began to listen to it, and I was amazed listening to these young boys talk about their visions for lives. And as I heard them talk about it, and I got excited and started sharing into this young man's life about why he wanted to go to the Air Force Academy instead of Clemson, and why this would be better, and just something about the leadership principles and about the job viability when you walk out, and it's just, But it was interesting that when I heard them speak about it, I knew where they got the idea from. They got the idea from their dads. They got the ideas from their dads. Kids just don't find the Air Force or Naval Academy or West Point or whatever the other academies are, but they just don't find that. Dad planted this idea in it. And I realized that I don't have a lot of regrets in my life. My dad raised 8 children. And I don't know, maybe I'll give him a break because of Jesus. That, how do you sell a vision to 8 kids? I don't know. He managed to spank all of us. But if I had had somebody instead of my dad worrying about whether or not I was going to be gay at 13 when I colored my hair, if he had maybe spoken something about me becoming a military officer or being a submarine commander, which is in another life, that's exactly what I would be as a submarine commander, maybe my life would have turned out different. It made me realize that it wasn't because I was stupid. It wasn't because I couldn't finish college. It wasn't because I was colorblind. It wasn't because of all those things that it's like, you know what? Somebody just didn't speak a vision to me. And when you communicate the vision, hey, son, what do you want to be? Daughter, what do you want to be? You know, and it's like, okay, let me help you see the structure that gets you there. You know, I know Latin. I remember my freshman year in high school. I know Latin is stupid, Paul. And I know ancient civilization and you know, and the Byzantine Empire is stupid. But if my pop had the ability, and again, to connect Latin to flying an F-16, I might have gotten there. You say, well, some kids are just meant for greatness and some kids are just meant for McDonald's. No, I don't think that's the case. And there's nothing wrong if McDonald's is the vision of your life and that's where you wanted to end up to manage McDonald's. That's cool. There's merit in that. Where there is disappointment is when you fall short of your potential. That's when the heartbreak happens. And Paul and the scriptures are trying to let us know that we have the ability to call them out to be heroic. Moms and dads, you have the power when used correctly. And remember this. We are only to use criticism to burn the chaff from the wheat, not to burn the crop. Oh, I tell you, if you remember anything other than scriptures today, that's the line to remember. Is that too many times it was defolization that went on in my household. The Agent Orange got brought out and all the forestry got removed in one fell swoop. It didn't matter if it applied to Paul or Mary or Peter because their temperaments were different. It didn't matter. All the foliage got just destroyed and burnt. Again, at the end of my father's life, he found Christ. We reconnected, forgave him, and loved him. But, you know, we all leave a legacy behind. Now, we can all end up being saved in the middle of all this, but you gotta ask yourself, what kind of parking spaces are you leaving behind? What am I forcing my kids to pull into and to experience? And how much is it of God? Likewise, don't avoid training just because it's hard. I'm going to have to end here because I'm out of time. And that was a lot. So I'm just going to end there. This idea of, is it hard to raise children? Yes, it is. Is it hard to control your mind and keep your mind in between the spaces? It is. Why? How do you know? It's like, well, because more Americans are downloading pornography than watching Netflix and Instagram. What's wrong there? Yeah, parking spaces. We just don't have parking spaces anymore. And it's hard and it's difficult. And I've dealt with addictions. I've dealt with pornography in my life. And it's only when I found the framework of godly masculinity that I kind of knew where to park my car. When I heard verses like, husbands, love your wives and give your life for her, as Christ died for the church. It's not about what your wife can do for you or what you're demanding from your spouse, but it's like, no, I didn't pay that parking space. So let me encourage you wherever you are. This message may have only applied for your mind, and that's good. Having a disciplined mind, having structure in your mind. As Jordan Peterson said, sometimes the best thing you can do is just clean up your room. Start there. Have you ever felt that feeling when all of a sudden the garage is clean? You didn't build anything. You just put everything in its place and you step back and you open up the garage doors and you're just like, I feel good about myself. Why? Because this one area of my life got structure. See, some of us, God wants to bring divine structure to us. So as you come for communion, as you write your prayer request and pin it to the cross for us to pray over this week, maybe structure is one of those things that you want. It's not really structure you're looking for. You're looking for continuity, certainty, coherency, and connectivity. And God wants you to have all those things. Just look at your body. Just look at the seasons. Just look at the worlds around you. Look at the classifications of the animal world. Look at it all. Everything's structured beautifully. God wants us to experience that structure while enjoying our freedoms. Father, I thank you so much. I thank you so much for alerting us to kind of calling out, for us to dust off the scriptures, for us once again to rediscover the ancient ways, to raise up the ruins that have been torn down, to become the repairers of the breach, as Isaiah said. But it starts with us. Our students, our children, our spouses will not copy our religious philosophies. They will copy our lives. So today we bring our lives to Jesus. And I thank you, God, for the table of communion. Because in the broken body of Jesus, in the poured out blood, and in the power of resurrection, all things can become new. For the 30-year-old single, for the 80-year-old grandfather, whether mistakes have been made, things have been forgotten, or things were not learned, whether of regrets or shame, today you offer us a table, a parking space of grace, love, and truth. And today we come and receive.